The Galactic Council Hall floated above the glowing surface of Oralis Prime like a crystal moon. Its towers shimmered under the light of two suns, symbols of unity among the 1,000 worlds under its rule. Inside the grand chamber, voices echoed, sharp, cold, and certain. At the center, the council's supreme chair, Varn Thal, lifted his silver staff, calling for silence. "We are gathered," he declared, "to discuss the matter of humanity, again." Across the chamber, hundreds of alien delegates shifted uneasily. The word human carried a strange weight, part fear, part irritation, and part guilt. Humanity had been both a marvel and a mystery to the galaxy. In just 3 centuries, they had risen from a minor planet to a force whose ships could cross sectors in weeks. Their technology was unconventional, their thinking unpredictable, but they had never fully joined the Council. "They ignore our regulations," hissed Councilor Ress, a tall being of feathers and gold eyes. "They act outside Council law, build weapons we cannot understand, and explore regions we have forbidden." A low hum of agreement filled the chamber. "And yet," countered Councilor Meven, a soft-voiced member from the aquatic world of Corliss, "they saved the Daran colonies during the plague. They shared medicine freely even when we refused them entry." "That was then," Ress snapped. "Now they isolate themselves. They've closed all embassies and stopped responding to our transmissions. Their fleets no longer appear in Council records. What are they planning?" The question lingered like a shadow. Varn Thal leaned forward, his silver eyes narrowing. "We warned them. We offered them inclusion. But they refused unity. Perhaps they finally realized they cannot defy the Council forever." But deep down, even Varn knew it wasn't that simple. The human withdrawal. Across the spiral arms of the galaxy, whispers began to spread. Human ships, once common in trade routes and rescue operations, were vanishing. Stations once run by human engineers were shutting down one by one. Outposts went dark. At first, many thought it was a political move, a protest against the Council's strict control over exploration. But soon it became clear it was something more. On the moon of Kestrel 4, Ambassador Lyra Kayan, the last human diplomat stationed in alien space, closed her embassy doors for the final time. The local staff, a mix of alien races, watched as she sealed the Terran insignia and handed her access codes to the planetary governor. "Is it true?" the governor asked. "Are your people leaving?" Lyra nodded softly. "We've chosen—" Silence. Silence. She looked out toward the sky, her voice calm but filled with something that felt like sorrow. "For centuries we tried to belong. We offered help. We shared everything we had. But the Council only saw us as a problem to manage. Now humanity has decided it's time to step away. But why? You can't just—" Lyra smiled faintly. "We can. And we have." Her shuttle lifted off a few moments later, leaving behind a world that suddenly felt emptier than before. The Council reacts weeks turned into months. At first, the Council believed the withdrawal was temporary. But reports kept coming in. Every human colony, every trade post, every shipyard gone. Entire planets once filled with bustling human life were silent. When probe drones were sent to confirm, they found only clean, empty cities. Power grids were offline. Gardens were neatly maintained, but no one tended them. It was as if billions of humans had simply walked away together. Panic began to ripple through the Council worlds. Where did they go? Someone demanded in a meeting. "Why would they abandon everything?" asked another Councilor. Meven spoke softly. "Maybe they didn't abandon it. Maybe they took everything that mattered to them somewhere else." Varn Thal slammed his staff against the floor. "Impossible. No species could relocate on such a scale. Not without our knowledge." But deep in his heart, he wasn't sure anymore. Humans had always done the impossible. Echoes of guilt. The galaxy had not treated humanity kindly. In the early years, humans were newcomers, curious, reckless, and eager to explore. They reached out to others, offering cooperation. But their methods were unorthodox, their science strange, their adaptability unnerving. The Council feared them. They accused humans of destabilizing trade routes, of refusing to follow rules written long before Earth had even joined the stars. The Council imposed sanctions, restricted human expansion, and labeled their independence as defiance. And yet, even under pressure, the humans helped others. They shared medical technology that saved millions. They responded to distress calls no one else dared to answer. Now their absence left a void impossible to ignore. On the mining world of Rethar, machinery stopped working. Humans had designed and maintained it. On the border colonies, disease returned where human medicine had once cured it. Ships that once depended on Terran engineers were grounded. It wasn't just their presence the galaxy missed, it was their will, their energy, their strange compassion. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy felt quiet, too quiet. The search begins. The Council launched an investigation. Fleets of survey vessels scanned human space. From the barren red sands of Mars to the glowing oceans of New Eden. They found nothing, no voices, no signals, no signs of conflict. Even Earth, the cradle of humanity, was empty. Cities stood like monuments to a vanished people. Streets were clean, power plants still hummed with stored energy, and the air was fresh. But not a single human remained. In the ruins of what was once the United Terran Assembly, a recording was found. It showed an empty chamber, a circular hall lined with flags of blue and white. The recording began with the voice of a woman, calm, steady, and proud. To those who find this message, humanity does not abandon the galaxy in anger, but in understanding. We came seeking unity, but we were not welcome, so we returned to silence, to places where judgment cannot reach us. Remember us not as conquerors or rebels, but as those who once offered their hands. When the stars grow quiet, and the cold of regret comes, you will understand why we left. The message ended with the Terran insignia fading into a soft white glow. No coordinates, no destination, only silence. The weight of realization. After the message was revealed, the council chamber fell into heavy silence. Even Varn Thal, who had once spoken harshly against humanity, lowered his gaze. They are gone? Councillor Meven nodded slowly. Yes, they chose to leave everything behind. Even us. But why would they not tell us where they went? Ress whispered. Would you have let them? Meven replied quietly. Ress had no answer. In the following months, strange phenomena began to appear near old Terran sectors, regions of space that shimmered with unusual energy fields. Ships that tried to enter those zones reported navigation failures and soft, distant signals that sounded almost like voices. Some believed it was just cosmic interference. Others thought humanity had built something beyond the Council's understanding, something meant to keep them hidden. Either way, the message was clear. Humanity had stepped beyond the galaxy's reach. The silent lesson years passed. The Council thrived in appearance. Trade routes reopened. New colonies were founded. But something fundamental had changed. Whenever disaster struck, people asked, what would the humans have done? When exploration missions found abandoned Terran outposts, they treated them like sacred places, reminders of a people who once cared deeply, even for those who never cared for them. On Oralis Prime, Varn Thal often stood at the balcony of the council hall, staring at the stars, the same stars humanity had left behind. He would whisper softly, we thought we were the center of civilization, but perhaps they were the heart. And somewhere beyond the reach of the known galaxy, humanity watched in silence, waiting to see if the Council would finally learn what unity truly meant. The galaxy moved on. At least that was what everyone said. Trade resumed. Fleets patrolled. The Council continued to meet in its grand chamber above Oralis Prime. Yet, despite all the busy noise of civilization, a quiet emptiness stretched across the stars. It had been 10 standard years since humanity's disappearance. No new messages, no sightings, no transmissions, and still the question remained, where did they go? The mission to Terran space one evening, Councillor Meven stood before a large display of the galactic map. Whole sectors glowed softly in blue, but one region remained completely dark, Terran space. Varn Thal entered the chamber behind her. You still watch that empty map? He asked quietly. Meven nodded. It's not empty, Varn, it's silent. There's a difference, he frowned. Silence changes nothing, they left. Let them stay gone. Meven turned, her eyes calm but sharp. And yet you still come here at night to look too, don't you? Varn said nothing. After a moment, Meven spoke again. We should send an exploration team. One last mission to understand what happened. The galaxy deserves an answer. Varn hesitated. The Council had long banned travel into Terran space, fearing unknown technology or traps left behind. But his heart, though he would never admit it, felt heavy with guilt. Finally, he nodded. Very well. One mission, quietly. And so, the exploration vessel Astria was prepared. The Astria's journey. The Astria launched from Oralis Prime with a small, diverse crew. Captain Thay, a disciplined pilot from the Varnan system, Engineer Jilra, a curious insectoid mechanic who once studied human machines, Archivist Loom, a historian who specialized in human culture, and a group of assistants who volunteered not for fame, but for answers. Their orders were simple: travel to Earth, investigate and return with knowledge. For weeks, the Astria moved through silent space. The stars here seemed dimmer, as if mourning the people who once lived among them. Entire systems were empty but not lifeless. Machines maintained balance, lights flickered softly, and environmental systems still functioned. Everything still runs, Jilra murmured, watching power readings on her screen, as if someone left only yesterday. Archivist Loom ran her fingers over an old datapad they found drifting among the remains of a Terran research station. They didn't abandon anything. They preserved it. It's like they wanted their memory to stay clean. Captain Thay looked at the vast blackness ahead. Or they planned to return. The world called Earth. When the Astria finally reached Earth, the sight was breathtaking. The blue planet still turned slowly under the sun. Clouds drifted peacefully, oceans shimmered like polished glass, and from orbit, cities glowed faintly under protective domes. But no ships flew. No voices spoke. They landed near what old records called New Geneva, a human capital city built centuries ago. Streets were empty but perfectly clean. Buildings stood untouched. The wind carried a faint hum, like a distant song made by the planet itself. Look, Loom whispered, pointing toward a tall monument in the city square. It was a statue, not of a ruler or warrior, but of a child holding a small globe. At its base, words were carved in many languages. We do not vanish. We become. The crew looked at one another in silence. What does that mean? Jilra asked. Loom knelt beside the monument, tracing the letters with her hand. It means they didn't die or run away. They changed. The signal in the sky while exploring the central communication tower, Captain Thay discovered something unexpected, a weak signal, repeating endlessly across all human frequencies. Can you decode it? He asked. Jilra's claws moved quickly over the console. After a few moments, a voice began to play. It was soft, almost gentle, filled with emotion. To those who seek us, you look for bodies and cities, but we are not there. You search for sound, but we have learned silence. When you see the stars shimmer as never before, you will know we are near. The voice paused, then continued. We have gone where thought is light, where distance is only memory. Do not follow in fear, follow in understanding. The message ended. Jilra looked confused. What does that even mean? Loom's eyes widened. They're talking about transcending physical form. Maybe they evolved, moved beyond matter itself, they frowned. That's impossible. Wasn't everything impossible for humans once? She replied softly. Discovery. Beneath the surface, further scans revealed a large underground chamber beneath the old Terran capital. The crew descended carefully into a vast hall lined with glowing pillars. In the center stood a single sphere, transparent, humming gently, filled with streams of light. It pulsed slowly, almost like a heartbeat. As the crew approached, holographic images flickered to life, memories of humanity's past. They saw scenes of humans helping alien children learn to read, of Terran doctors curing distant species, of scientists working side by side with others, even while the Council rejected them. Then the images changed. They showed moments of sorrow, Council debates filled with distrust, trade restrictions that starved colonies, and humans watching quietly as they were shut out. Finally, the light formed a single image, a woman standing in front of the Terran flag. It was the same voice from the old recording. We realized that to be understood, we first had to leave. We do not hate. We simply grew beyond the need to be seen. The galaxy was not ready for what we have become, but one day it will be. The hologram paused, then added, When your hearts are open and your pride fades, you will hear us again. Until then, we watch, we wait, and we forgive. Then the sphere dimmed, and silence returned. A changed heartback aboard the Astria. No one spoke for a long time. Jilra, usually full of questions, sat quietly staring at her hands. "They forgave us," she whispered. "After everything," Captain Thay nodded slowly. "And we never even said thank you." Archivist Loom looked at the glowing sphere she had brought aboard, a small fragment of Terran light. "They wanted us to learn, not to follow. To change ourselves first. When they returned to Oralis Prime, they carried no weapons, no secrets. Only that message. The Council's awakening." The Council chamber was silent as the Astria's crew presented their findings. The hologram of the human message played before them once again. When it ended, no one moved. Finally, Councillor Ress, the same who once spoke harshly of humanity, stood. "They forgave us after we cast them out?" Mevin nodded. "Yes, and they wait for us to understand why they left." Varntal closed his eyes. "For years we ruled by law, not wisdom. We wanted control, not connection. Humanity showed us both, and we ignored them." He looked up, voice trembling slightly. "That ends today." The Council voted unanimously to establish the Terran Initiative, not as an attempt to find or reclaim humanity, but to study their teachings, their kindness, and their ways of unity. Across the galaxy, schools began teaching Terran philosophy. Scientists revisited human technology, learning how creativity mattered more than power. Artists painted images of humans surrounded by stars. The galaxy began to change, slowly, but truly. Whispers in the stars' years passed again. The initiative grew, and so did understanding. One night, as Mevin stood on the balcony of the council hall, she saw something strange in the sky. A faint band of light stretched across the horizon, not like ordinary starlight but alive, moving gently like waves. She called the astronomers, but their instruments found no natural explanation. The lights shimmered, forming what looked like countless small patterns, almost like words, a message. It lasted only a few minutes, but witnesses across hundreds of worlds saw it. Later, the Council's translators offered their best interpretation. "You are learning. Keep walking the path. We are with you." The galaxy held its breath. For the first time in centuries, hope replaced guilt. The new dawn generations later, the Council changed forever. No longer did they see themselves as rulers but as caretakers of shared existence. Where once there had been suspicion, there was now collaboration. Where there had been walls, there were now bridges. Every year, on the day humanity had vanished, the galaxy held a quiet moment of remembrance. Ships dimmed their lights for 1 minute, and all who looked at the stars whispered softly, "Thank you, humans." And somewhere beyond visible space, where matter turned to light and thought traveled faster than time, humanity watched. They no longer needed ships or worlds. They had become part of the cosmos itself. They watched the galaxy they had once loved begin to grow kinder, wiser, and more united. And though they never spoke in words again, their presence filled the stars like gentle music, reminding every being that true strength was never in power, but in compassion. Epilogue, the Council's monument many centuries later. On the same hill where the Galactic Council Hall once stood, a monument was built. It wasn't grand or tall. It was simple, a circle of stones, and in the center a single inscription written in every known language. They left not in anger, but in faith. For they believed one day we would finally learn to listen, and on quiet nights, travelers swore they could still hear soft echoes like human laughter, carried on the cosmic wind. Perhaps it was imagination, or perhaps humanity had never truly left at all.